Hello and welcome to another episode of SW's Property Matters podcast. Today I've got three fantastic guests with me and we're going to be talking about apprenticeships and that particular route into surveying. Lauren and Tom join me and they're both currently on the apprenticeship pathway, and then David works with them in the Northeast as well. So David, did you want to kick us off with introductions?
Yeah, David Fairley. I head up building consultancy in Teesside. I'm a partner in building consultancy, and I've been with Sanderson Weatherall, previously Sanderson Town and Gilbert, now for 21 years.
Wow. And
Yeah.
Lauren, you've joined a bit more recently than that.
Yeah, definitely. So I'm an apprentice building surveyor at Sanderson Weatherall, based in the Newcastle office. I've been there nearly touching on 3 years now, I think. So yeah, I'm in the 4th year, heading into the last year of the programme.
And then Tom.
Yeah, so I'm Tom Sims. I work for David in the Teesside office, and I joined Sanderson Weatherall in August 2019, so nearly 2 years.
All right, thank you very much. Lauren, you touched a bit upon you're sort of in your 4th year going into your 5th. Perhaps you could provide a quick introduction to the apprenticeship pathway for those listening that might not know exactly what it entails.
Yeah, so it's not really a traditional route into surveying, it's something quite recent. And essentially, the degree apprenticeship programme, it's a combination of the working and training as a surveyor whilst studying degree alongside. So typically you'll do your 4-day week, working week as a trainee surveyor, and then 1 day release to attend university. The programme is 5 years long, with the idea that you are ready to sit your endpoint assessment, which is your APC, at the end. So that sort of runs alongside your last 2 years. Essentially, main concept of the pathway is to provide the skills and knowledge from the industry perspective rather than solely classroom based, as really it's sort of all in the real light, like you conducting your live surveys, dealing with clients, which you wouldn't be doing in uni. So yeah, that's essentially what the programme entails in a brief.
Thank you. And David, sort of a quick point of reference, can you tell us a bit more about what Lauren described as the more traditional route into surveying?
More traditional route will be either a 3 or a 4-year degree, year out placement, where you find yourself in the industry and you get some hands-on experience of what building consultancy or a surveying business operates as. Certainly what you will do in your year out will be akin to what Tom and Lauren have been doing in their first couple of years with us. But like Lauren says, with the way that the apprenticeship works, you are balancing both university and hands-on experience of working as an apprentice in a surveying practice from day one. So it helps to balance both your practical knowledge and your theoretical knowledge.
Thank you. And then Tom, sort of surveying, we've spoken about before on the podcast, is a reasonably niche sort of industry to go into. What made you sort of look at surveying as a career path?
Yeah, so initially, one of my mentors at uni sort of promoted it to me and spoke about it. And from actually, Martin Smith came into uni and did a talk on it. And at that point, I got quite interested in it. And when I looked into it more, sort of no 2 days are the same. There's quite a large amount of time spent in and out of the office as well, which for me was a bonus. So yeah, it's definitely a lot more than just a in-office job 24/7.
Yeah, I think that attracts a lot of people to it. Was it similar for you as well then, Lauren?
Yeah, well, a little bit different actually. I started off with my interest in geography, which I really enjoyed at A-level, and then I sort of became career minded during my 2 years doing A-levels, and then spoke with a careers advisor on what my next steps were with my interest with geography. And she actually suggested, what have you thought about the construction industry? And I thought, no way, like that's just not something I'd see myself in. And then I gave it some thought, and I thought I'll go on to the I think it's like an advanced technical extended diploma in constructing the built environment. And so I took on that course, and it gave about 18 different disciplines of where the industry sort of goes as far as construction, and found building surveying in there and thought it gives you a bit of everything. It's so varied. And that's when I seeked an opportunity to progress to a degree, but also find this apprenticeship. And like Tom says, no 2 days are the same. It is very varied, and you're running around half the time from site to site, and then you've got little time in the office. At least that's me this week, but some weeks you will be solely in the office, so it's very varied, and yeah, it's a very good route, I'd say.
How do you find it? You've mentioned that you study alongside working. Is that sort of, you do that in your evenings, or you say you maybe do a day a week? How's that been for both of you? Tom, maybe you can answer that.
Yeah. Yes, I think compared to the normal sort of university route, I think there's a lot of people who probably struggle with like the time management as far as uni. But I think when you're at work, you're very like in the mindset of managing your time and making sure you meet deadlines, which I think doing that at work then reflects on uni work, and you're more you're more likely to, well, I find it easier to meet deadlines because you're in that mindset already.
Yeah, that's great. And Lauren, much the same for you?
Yeah, definitely. At times it's very demanding from both uni and work, and obviously you can't really forecast how much workload you're going to get one week compared to another. In your uni, you're sort of set out, so that goes along gradually. But when there are peak times at work with demand, it can be quite tough, sort of having your focus on both. Because I sort of find you jump in the evening straight onto uni work after your normal working day, and it is quite demanding, and it's tiring, but it does work in favour. I think the time management thing is key, and I still need to get to grips with it now. It's something that it's hard, but yeah, very much the same.
I think that's a skill that can take years to develop. So I think it's something that's good to learn quite early. David, I can see you smirking a bit there. Perhaps, David, it'd be great if you could sort of touch upon how, as far as I'm aware, in my time at SW, these are the first two apprentices we've had. You say it's quite a relatively new pathway. How have you found it from an SW perspective and having them on the team?
I think from an SW perspective, it's really good. I think it helps us to, probably from a social perspective, help to contribute and put something back in, because we're used to taking people who have either got 2-3 years experience, or maybe they've done a placement with us. And I think what we find is that we spend time with certainly a student on a placement, and you're just starting to make a bit of progress with them, if you like, in improving their and increasing their knowledge base before they go back to university, that's just how the system is. It's neither good nor bad. I think the view that we took with an apprenticeship was that if we invest a year with an apprentice, then we're going to be able to invest another year and another year and another year. So it is more of a long-term investment for us, without a shadow of a doubt. I think it helps us with continuity of client contact and workload and experience and education and training. I wholeheartedly agree with Lauren and Tom that it is by far the harder way of doing it, because you don't have the natural respite that you would have if you were just working, or if you were just at university, that you're trying to balance both things at the same time. But in some respects, I think it's potentially the better way to do it, because at least what you are being taught at university, you're then able to apply in a real life business environment. And conversely, what you are learning hands-on on your day-to-day business, you take that back to university and then your coursework and your lectures and everything else. So you're not, say, necessarily ahead of the game, but at least when people are talking in either spectrum, you have an understanding of what's being discussed. It's nice as well to know that, I suppose, from Tom and Lauren's perspective, that the timescales and the deadlines that we naturally have in an office environment are actually being beneficial going the other way and helping them with university work. So there's, I think, would be a bit of reciprocal payback, but nice to see that there is.
Yeah, that's great. You spoke about sort of time management at length, and obviously the past year has been really tough. We've had sort of restricted office access. I imagine when you're in sort of your early years, the development is important. And Tom, you say you work with David. Has it been tricky, sort of, Tom, I guess, not maybe having as much contact with David over the last year? Have you managed to keep in touch and get out together all the same?
Yeah, I think so. Probably initially when everything sort of kicked off, it was it was probably awkward to do sort of surveys together because you probably both couldn't be in a near space together, or you both had to had to wear masks and everything, and it was it was quite hard initially. But since sort of March, April time, I've been back in the office, and that's sort of helped quite a bit, because it's easy just to have a conversation. Then you don't have to pick up the phone, and it does help everything. It does help a lot. And it's like, a lot easier just to have a chat, and you get a better understanding when you're speaking to somebody face to face rather than over the phone. Obviously, in the last year, would have been sort of networking events that we've sort of missed out on. But obviously, there's still been online CPDs that we've been doing as well.
And Lauren, has all your sort of uni side of it, has that been online as well? Have you still been able to do bits of that? How's that been?
Yeah, again, a big change, and I guess as everyone's saying, well, sometimes thank God for technology. Sometimes people don't say that.
Yeah.
But I think from my side of things, the regular contact at the beginning on the work side and the uni side, I guess, as well, was a bit up and down. It took some adjusting to, but opposed to sort of having your time with somebody in the team just a desk away, where you can just have a conversation about something rather than calling them, and then you can be passing ships in the night because you don't know if people are out, are they working remotely. But yeah, the contact with work, you get around it eventually, and you still maintain it in different ways, phone calls, Teams meetings. But uni likewise was the same. It was all online the past year, and seminars and lectures. But I have had conversations with lecturers about certain assessments if I've had queries over the phone as well, which I wouldn't have thought you'd be able to do. But I think COVID sort of pushed that. So I see it in a positive way, to be honest. Communication's got better. Yeah.
And David, the building consultancy team in the Northeast, but nationally as well, is one of the biggest teams at SW. How have you found sort of communications being kept up throughout, both internally and with clients?
I think everybody's been in the same position. So everybody's perception levels have changed almost simultaneously. It's not as if we as SW have decided to do something radically different, which is different to what the market's doing. I think it is undoubtedly, or has been, more difficult in many ways, on the basis that you can't just sit down with a client or a colleague as easily as you would normally do. But by the same token, the fact that we are spending more time on Teams, and whilst everybody laughs and jokes about the fact, it is making people more efficient. And if we're trying to live in a greener society, and we're supposed to be moving to vehicles that are electrically driven, and we're moving away from gas and diesel and petrol, then in its own small way, if you find a benefit out of what's happened, and that happens to be Teams, and you're not traveling to every single meeting, and then long may it continue. There are enormous downsides to what has happened, without a shadow of a doubt, and it's affected Tom and Lauren's education and the amount of access that they have to colleagues and information. But by the same token, there are some small gains to be had from it at the same time.
Yeah, I think probably quite lucky that Tom, I think you've been coming up for 2 years, that you've been able to build some relationship with David before this happened, because it'd be very difficult if you were starting from scratch, face to face on a camera. It's a really different experience. So you're fortunate, I guess, that you had a bit of a relationship beforehand that you could lean on to keep in touch, and you had a face to the name, I guess.
Yeah. I think even when we were at the start of, even when I was on furlough, we still sort of had a call every week and had a chat through everything. And then when we did start working again, we still sort of went through everything every day or every couple of days, just to check that what I was doing was sort of along the right lines, and that I was making progress with what I was doing, which was really helpful. But yes, yeah.
That's very good to hear. Lauren, we'll go on to our quickfire questions, which everyone's always dead nervous about. But just before that, do you have sort of any final bits of advice for maybe those that were in your shoes a few years ago that are considering an apprenticeship, whether that is surveying or sort of another profession?
I think it's really tailored to what sort of, as a person, how you work. If an apprenticeship's the right thing for you, if you're hands-on and you want to get into an industry first rather than get the education behind you, then definitely consider it. And that's why I did as well. And I wanted to I work better hands-on and learning something in the real light rather than just textbook solely and then fully going into it, I think. But I'd say if you're already on an apprenticeship or you're thinking about it, don't be so hard on yourself at the beginning to feel like you need to know everything and get to grips with things straight away. Because by this route that myself and Tom are on, it's a very valuable route, but it's very tough at times. And you've always got to remember you're still learning, so mistakes will be made, and don't let them put you off. And you will get to where you want to be when the time comes. It's patience, I think, really. But that's the advice I would give.
It's a very,
think-
very rounded answer. Tom, can you add anything to that, or has she covered it?
No, I think, yeah, it's probably, I'd just say that I think the most important thing is that you go to a company that wants to invest time in you. And like when I joined, like David's sent me on the EPC course, and that for somebody who'd been there a year was for me a really big thing, because obviously it shows that the company wanted to invest in you for the future. So yeah, other than what Lauren said, yeah, I'll just say that a company that is willing to put the time into your education.
That's really good. Very important. Unless any of you have got anything to add, we'll finish on the quick fire questions. And then Lauren, I think you said you're off on another site visit, so it really is all time. So
I know, non-stop.
we'll get them done quickly. So yeah, these are just a bit of get to know you. People like hearing them at the end. So we'll just jump in and I'll work my way around you one at a time. So David, are you a tea or a coffee drinker?
Oh, coffee every day of the week. Tea's the devil's brew.
Lauren, do you agree?
Definitely coffee, all the way.
And Tom, is it 3 out of 3?
3 out of 3.
Right, that's how you two have got so much on, because you're just constantly drinking caffeine. That's
Which is
why.
why you
Fuel.
don't have time. Yeah.
David, to you again. Reading or Netflix? Which is your preference?
Probably reading, actually, on that one.
Yeah, very good.
Mainly because we don't Netflix, but yeah, reading, I would say.
Lauren, doesn't sound like you've got much time to squeeze in anything else, but are you a Netflix binger or a reader?
Netflix in the background if I'm busy. I'm trying to read more though. Bit of a mix at the moment, but it's always been Netflix, I think.
Tom, for you?
Netflix.
Netflix for free. Right. When it comes to shopping, we've obviously all been forced to shop online for quite a period of time, but are you looking forward to all the shops fully being back open, David, or are you going to stick to online?
Probably a combination of both. I think I'm still trying to get myself into a position where I'm still starting to feel comfortable with things, because there are times when you're out and about and it's a slow process. Plus the fact I don't feel a great desire or need to go shopping. So it's either, really, take it or leave it.
Yeah. Lauren, do you have a preference?
Oh, both. It depends what it is. I mean, I'm in love with ASOS, so if ASOS open an on high street store, then dreams will be answered. But
Yeah.
I'm probably going to go with online, to be honest. It's just easy.
What about yourself, Tom?
Yeah, it's got to be online. When you're walking around the shops, everybody walks so slowly and everybody gets in your way. It's easier to just get it delivered.
And then I think I know maybe which way this might go, but David, are you moving forward, looking forward to getting straight back into the office, or a bit of a hybrid, or is working from home been a bit of a blessing for you?
Probably a hybrid. There are undoubted benefits to being in the office as a communication side of things and the access to colleagues and everything else that makes it easier. Speed of connections and trying to download files, etc., is better in the office as well. Having said that, I don't see that we will get back to a position where we either have to be or need to be in an office 5 days a week. I think there'll be a degree of flexibility and people will start to pick and choose depending on what they've got on. I think either, really. I'm happy with either option.
Yeah. Lauren, what about yourself?
I'd say a mixture, if I'm honest. I mean, you've got that more sort of flexibility of working from home. So if you are nipping out to site, in some cases you're closer to them, you're not having to dip into the office first. But then, like what David said, communication side of things, especially because I'm training, it's key to be next to somebody for them to just easily show you. I mean, there's been numerous meetings I've had on Teams, and it's not the same when you've got 10 drawings to show them. They don't all fit on the screen, so it's sometimes some things hands-on are better. But I think a mixture would be in favour of all, really.
Tom, do you agree with that?
Yeah, but yeah, well, like David said earlier, going forward, there's a lot of drive to become sort of to become more environmentally friendly. So as far as people driving to the office, and as far as that's concerned, I think probably a mixture of both there. Because like I said, there's been stuff that me and David have been doing recently that, with me sat at home and David sat at home, would have been a lot harder than sat 10 meters away from each other.
Yeah.
Socially distance, obviously.
Yeah.
And then finally, David, the one that seems to get to a lot of people, your dream dinner guest can be dead or alive.
Yeah, I saw this. I thought of a few, but I think the first one on the list will be Billy Connolly.
Great answer. Very good.
Just because he's the funniest one in the world.
Yeah. Lauren, what about yourself?
This is hard. The first person that springs to mind, weirdly, is Elton John. I just think he's a fab he's a fab character, and he's a great musician, and I'd love to sit down and have dinner with Elton John. I can't believe I'm saying this, but yeah.
That's a good shout, that one.
Yeah. Or Reg Dwight is his real name, isn't it? So
yeah.
Good knowledge as well. Good knowledge. What about Tom? Who springs to mind for you?
Probably someone like David Beckham, just because of the sporting experiences he's had, just to be able to go all over the world and have the career he's had. Just hear about that. It'd be great.
Three very different answers, but I imagine they'd all have a story to tell. It would be quite a dinner party if all six of you could get together.
Yeah, it'd be an interesting night, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Well, thank you all very much. And for those listening, sort of if you want to hear more, we'll share out a few links on the apprenticeship pathway. And I'm sure Lauren and Tom won't mind if anyone wants to sort of connect on LinkedIn, or maybe drop them a note if you're considering that sort of route into surveying and you've got any questions.